One of the key powers of ProcessBook is that you can make displays out of just about anything. You can take screenshots from anywhere or images from anywhere, and you can incorporate them into displays, and then you can put the values and the things of your data anywhere you want to on the display. You can make a visual display that's really arranged any way you want. So what I have here is I've brought in a picture of my office building, and then I put some data about temperature sensors where those temperature sensors are on the display. So now I can look at this and I can get a really quick sense of where my building is hot and where my building is cold. And using powers like this is what makes ProcessBook so flexible. You can take screenshots of, say, like a control screen or an image from somewhere else in your facility, and you can incorporate it into a ProcessBook display. And often we have customers that make ProcessBook displays that mimic a SCADA display, for instance, or a control screen display. Now, you can also do really neat things if you have a few displays that relate to each other. Like for here, I have an office and there are different floors to the office. Well, maybe I have the second and third floor. Well, I can create these buttons, and when I click them, I'll go to other floors in my building. So with one user experience, I can skip around and see what the temperatures are like anywhere in my building. And you could do this with anything. If you have a production line and there's different sections of the production line, well, you could have buttons that go to different sections. And then maybe the main overall display is just an overview display. That's all possible with what we're going to show in this video. Okay, so now to start off with, of course, the first thing you need to do is just create a new display. And we're going to see how to build up this whole thing I have in front of you. So go New, ProcessBook Display, and we're going to name it My Custom Graphic Display. And I'm going to call it Floor 1. Floor 1. Okay, so I start off with a blank display, and I'm going to start by putting in some text. So I'm going to make a display about my office building, and you can make a display about anything you want. So when I bring in a graphic, just think what kind of graphic you would want in your background. So this is going to be first floor office temperatures, just like that, and I'll increase the size. Yeah, that's good. And then from there, I also want to have a background, because I want this to look pretty good. So I'm going to start with a box, a color here, and I want it to be, yeah, purple. That's good. Now again, if I want this to be behind everything, I just need to send it to the back and scroll over. There we go. All right, and I want my title to look really nice and pretty here, so I'm going to make it see-through. So I'm going to go to the fill color and say none. There we go, first floor office temperatures. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to see what my office looks like. So you're going to bring in a graphic file. So what we do is we just go to graphic here, while in build mode, press it, and then you're just going to drag a box and release. And it starts by go find your graphic file. So for me, I'm looking at the office map, so I'm going to go to my desktop, and you can search for different types of files. Now, a bunch of different types of file types are allowed. Mine are PNG style. Here they are. And once I select it, I say open, and I'm going to embed it for me. And for the purpose of this, I'm going to stretch the image to fit the bounding rectangle while retaining the aspect ratio, because I don't really want the office map to be resized, the aspect ratio. So I say OK, and my office map comes in. And I can stretch it and get it to about the size I want. That's pretty good. And I can fit this to be pretty around it. And now I have my first floor schematic ready to go. There we go. So now that we have our map in place, the next thing is to actually bring in some values, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up to here to the value button and click on my display. And now it asks, okay, well, let's go define where we want to draw this data from. So I'm going to go to the little arrow here. I'm going to go search my AF tree. And check this out. So at OSIsoft, we put our HVAC system in a PI system. So now the office has 3 floors, and each floor has 2 wings, and then each wing has a set of sensors. And I can click on one of those, and I can see all the different things that we're observing at each one of those sensor spots. So this one, I'm interested in the room temperature, so I'm going to click room temperature and say OK, and I've got it right here. Now, if you're building a display along with me, you'd be just selecting whatever value is of interest to you. You could just follow along and just create exactly what I'm creating with random tags, or you could just create a map with values that are important to you. Okay, so I say OK, and now I got the value on my sheet, 74.3, and I'm going to make that nice and big so we can all see it. Here we go, just like that. And now I really want to label it, so if I double click on it, I can ask to see what the tag name is on top. And what that does is it puts a really long, that whole path on top of the value, so that I could see what it is. Now this path is kind of cumbersome. It's really long, and really what this path represents is the same thing as this tree represents. So when we go into AF2, you see this whole long tree, this whole tree structure. Well, that's represented by this path here. They're the same thing, but unfortunately right now this is really cumbersome to see. I mean, I wouldn't actually put this on my display. It's just too much. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say no tag, and instead I'm just going to put some text next to it. I'm going to name what valve this is. So this is temperature number 23, was it? Is that right? 15. Oh, I'm sorry, 15. Number 15. Just like that. And I'm going to increase the size of this. Just like there. And now I have these temperatures next to them. Now the next thing is I'm going to just copy and paste this because I want to put in a couple sensors here. So you'll notice that when I was looking at my AF tree, there was a whole set of sensors. It wasn't just 1 or 2. There was actually a whole set which represented all the different sensors across my building. And first off, actually, to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to change these so we can all see them. There, that's better. And I'll make them a little bit prettier in a moment too. So first thing is I want to actually see different sensors with here. So I can double click on this one that I copied and pasted, and I could go into my tree here and go through the tree again and find the sensor and go click this and go to room temperature. So that's where I'm like manually going through the tree to change it to another valve. But you'll see here, look, I mean, the valve only changes by 1 digit, and I've got this whole path here. Now I could go in and I could manually select it from the tree every time, or check this out. I can just go into this text here and I can just change it to 16, say OK, and look, the value changed. So this is now looking at a different value. So this is looking at 16. And I can do that for the other sensors here. I can just come in and just edit this to be 17. OK. So this is 17. This one's going to be 18. Okay. 18. This one's going to be 19. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little background to these. So let's go to, okay, here. I'm going to create a blue box, and I want this box to have kind of wider lines, and then I'm going to actually bring these to the front. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating some boxes to give some background to the temperature sensors I'm creating so that they're nice and easily visible. Okay, and I'm going to just bring these all to the front. So I'm selecting all of my values, saying arrange, bring to front. Here we go. bring to front, bring to front. And lastly, bring to front. And here we go. So now what I can do is I can actually distribute these around the site to where they should go. So I know that this one's down here. And 17, well, that one's over here in tech support. And this one is off in the manufacturing area. And this one is over near HR. Right down here. Okay. And I want to actually make these nice and easily usable, easily visible. So I'm going to change the background, be see-through, and I'll probably change the text to be white. Okay, so that's much easier to see. Okay. Now the next thing that would really add something to this display is some kind of visual color cue as to what the temperature is. Because right now I need to look at this and kind of read a number, and it's difficult for me to compare the number over here to the number over here unless I read it and think about it and then remember it and go over to this one. So what's really great is in ProcessBook we have the ability to do something called a multi-state symbol, which allows you to, well, I'll show you. So we can create a little circle. So I clicked on the ellipse here and then I just dragged out a circle. And this is going to become a little light that'll blink at us depending on what the temperature is. So once I have it out there, I'm just going to click multi-state symbol. And now we're brought into this, this view. Now it's similar to a value in that we need to link this up to a tag. So I'll start off with that and then we'll show you what we're going to do with the state info down here. Now this one is for the number 18 valve. So what I can do is I can just go find that in my map. So floor 1, east floor, valve number 18, that's what I'm interested in. And I'm also interested in linking this up to the room temperature. So I want my alarm to be going off of the same thing as the temperature next to it is going off of. I could link it up to something completely different, but for the purposes of this display and just so I kind of understand what's going on, I want these two to be really looking at the same tag and the same AF attribute. So I click room temperature and I say OK, and then it's brought down to here. So there's different states, and it will turn white or red depending on the state. That's the default, is that it'll go from 0 to 100, and if the value here is less than 50, it'll be white, and if it's greater than 50, it'll be red. So what do you think it's going to be? Right now the temperature is 72.3, so, well, if we press OK, we see it turns red. So it's red because the temperature is above 50. So let's go back into that. So I'm going to click on it and click multi-state symbol to edit it again. And now I wanted to do something a little bit more useful for temperatures. I wanted to show 3 different stages. So I'm going to click up the number of stages. And I want it to turn blue if it's really cold, red if it's really hot, and green if it's just right. So that means that the first state is going to be too cold, because that's going to be 0 till, well, when I get warm. And I get cold really easily, so I'm going to say 70 here. There we go. And I want the first color, so the first state, this state right here, I want this state to be blue, because blue is for cold. And then the next state, state number 2, which is this one right here, well, that's going to go from 70 till actually 72, because we're very exacting about our temperatures here. And I want this state to turn green. And then the last state, state 3, I want it to be red. And state 3, by the way, is defined by what the limits were that you set for the other 2 stages. So you won't need to set any values for the last state. So now look at this. From 0 to 70, it's going to be blue. And from 100 all the way down to 72, it's going to be red. And from 72 till from 70 to 72, it'll be green. So if we press OK, we see, well, it's still red because it's above 72. That's what we wanted. But now we can play around with the time. So now back at this time, if I scroll through, we could see the value changing at different points in time. It's green when the value is between 70 and 72. It's going to be blue when it's below 70. It's going to be red when it's too hot. Perfect, just what we want. And actually, I'm noticing that that blue color is the same as the underlying color. So I'm going to change the color of this background to be a different color, maybe a different, like a darker blue. Yeah, okay. There we go. And now all there is to do is just to copy this multi-state symbol, this little alarm, so that I have one for all of my different temperatures. So here we go. Put one all the way over here. Great. And then all we need to do now is make it fit it really well. And then, of course, what we copied and pasted was a multi-state symbol for temperature number 18. And we want it to be for the one matching each one of these. So all you need to do is just go to your multi-state symbol, click multi-state symbol button here, and then just edit the text to match up with what temperature you're actually looking at. Or if you're doing something, if you're not using temperatures, you're doing something else, then whatever value you've linked this value up to. So this one's 15. Okay. And this one is number 16. 16. And this one is number 17. 17. Just like that. Okay, and this one is number 19. Okay, there we go. And we have our display. So look at this. So we can scroll through time. We can see when the whole office was too cold, or the whole office was just right, when parts of it were too warm. We can scroll through and we can see at exactly what time different things are happening in our building, like here where most of the building was too cold. Finally giving evidence and credibility to the claims from HR that their office is always freezing. You can help them out. They'll love you. All right, well, and that's our display. So now you have a visual display that really easily shows what's going on with your data at any one time. And really, this really helps out us humans. Humans love maps and humans love colors like this. So I can just look at this and kind of absorb what's going on without needing to go and read data. Can you imagine if this was just in a spreadsheet, if it was just 5 numbers in a row? It's really difficult to get a sense of where that data is, where that data is relevant. And with things like customized graphics in ProcessBook, you can now show anything you want to. All right, so now what we're going to show is this is only the first floor of my office, and I have 2 other floors, and I want to link up the displays with those floors. So to begin with, I'm going to save this file. So I'm going to save it as my custom graphic display floor 1 on my desktop. And I'm going to show you I have a display for my second floor already, which is already all ready. There's nothing to be done. It's the exact same display as far as multi-state symbols and the backgrounds. And then I have another display for my third floor right here. Perfect, yeah. And now what I'd want to do is I'm going to link these displays together. So I'm going to go back to my first floor. And now what I need to do is just go into build mode, press button, and this is really actually a lot easier than it seems. It's pretty intimidating at first. But I put in a button and I just say, I want this button to link to the second floor. And now I'm going to browse for what action this button is going to take. So buttons, what they do is they perform an action. That action can be opening up another file. It can be opening up an Excel file. It can be opening up another ProcessBook file. It can be opening up a website. It can be anything that you could run through the Windows prompt you can put here. So I'm just going to browse for the second floor PDI because I want this button which opens up the second floor to just open up that ProcessBook display file. And I want it to open in the same window. And I'm also going to use relative path. This allows me, if I move the files around to different computers, they'll still be able to find each other. The buttons will be able to find the file I'm asking about. And I say OK. Now I have the second floor. I'm going to save and press my arrow key here and click on second floor. And look at that. Come to the second floor. And now I'll build a button to warp back to the first floor. Here. First floor. And I'm going to say, okay, so I want it to link to the first floor. Say OK. Here we go. Save. Get my handy dandy clicker, and I click, and I go back to the first floor. So it's really easy. So now I'm just going to fill this out with all of the buttons I want. So, there we go. So I want buttons that go to the first floor and to the third floor on all my floors, because I'm going to put these buttons everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a set of buttons, and then I'm going to copy and paste them between all my graphic files. So I'm going to browse. This first floor button is going to go to the first floor. Okay, and this button here, I want it to go to the third floor. So I'm going to say third, and I want it to go to the third floor. Okay, and now I've got all these buttons, and I'm going to copy and paste them. So copy, and now when I go into run mode and click on, let's see here, I'll save it. When I go to the second, I'll go to the second floor. Now if I go into build mode and paste, look, I got all those buttons there. I just need to put them where I want them. Save my file. Then go to the third floor. Go into build mode, paste. I got my 3 buttons. I can save it. And now check this out. I've got 3 ProcessBook display files that are all linked by buttons. And I can just click through them. So you could use this with your facility to maybe, if you had a whole facility and you had one big map that showed everything going on, well, maybe you'd have buttons that went to the different processes. So I could, if I wanted to, I could put these buttons anywhere. I could put them underneath each sensor. And maybe each button goes to more detail about that sensor. Maybe I have a display about this. If this is a individual tank or a pump or something, maybe this is the overview display, and then this button goes to a detailed display about this item. That's what buttons can do. They can help you easily navigate around your ProcessBook files. And they're super easy to put in. And then I can configure build other displays and have them all linked together and make sense with each other. So that's what we did in this video. We took a graphics file, and you could use any graphics file that you are interested in. I used a map here. A map makes a lot of sense. And then I put Pi data on top of it. And then I put these visual alarms on top of it that allow me to browse through what's going on in my data at any one time. What's going on in the temperature of my building at any one time. And I can skip to another floor and do the same thing. I can browse through the temperatures. That's what we have to show you on building a custom graphic display file, an overview file in ProcessBook.